Okay, Chapter 2. For each statement, write the converse and decide whether the converse is true or false. If it is true, write the statements as a biconditional. So a converse is if you have P implies Q, then you switch the order. So it's Q implies P. So you switch the hypothesis and the conclusion. And then the biconditional is using the words if and only if in between the hypothesis and conclusion. So number 14, if a polygon is a pentagon, then it has 5 sides. This statement's true, so now I'm going to write the converse. So the converse is if a polygon has 5 sides, then it's a pentagon. So the original statement is true, the converse is true. Now you can write them both together as a biconditional. Okay, so what I did is I took the hypothesis, a polygon is a pentagon, and then the conclusion, it has 5 sides, and I put if and only if in between. So you can only write a biconditional if the original statement is true, which it was, and the converse is true. Okay, for number 15, if Mary lives in Minneapolis, then she lives in Minnesota. Well, Minneapolis is in Minnesota, so that's true. So now I'm going to write the converse. So the converse is if she lives in Minnesota, then she lives in Minneapolis. Well, that statement's false because you can live in other places in Minnesota that are not Minneapolis. Okay, number 16, 17, use deductive reasoning. So we have 2 laws for deductive reasoning. One is if P implies Q is true, and you're given that P is true, then you can conclude Q is true. That's the law of detachment. The law of syllogism is if you know P implies Q is true and Q implies R is true, then P implies R is true. It's very similar to the transitive property. So, number 16, all good tennis players are quick. So, you can think of this as if you are a good tennis player, then you are quick. Okay, so looking at this one, let's identify the P and Q. So you are a good tennis player is P. You are quick is Q. So I'm given P implies Q is true. And now I'm given that Martina is a good tennis player. So Martina is a good tennis player follows along with P. So my answer is Martina is quick because I'm given P. If you were given that Martina was quick, you can't write that she's a good tennis player because then you can't go backwards. So I'm going to write Martina is quick is the answer. Okay, number 17. If I don't wear sunscreen while swimming, P, then I'll get sunburn, Q. If I get sunburn, Q, then I'll be in pain, R. So you have P implies Q and Q implies R. So you can use the law of syllogism and write, if I don't wear sunscreen while swimming, but I'm just going to shorten it, I'll be in pain. So I wrote down P implies R. Okay, 18. Rewrite the following biconditional as 2 conditionals. So remember, a biconditional has the if and only if. So this is a P. It has 2 pairs of opposite sides are parallel. That's a Q. So for this, to pull this apart into 2 conditionals, I'm going to write P implies Q and Q implies P. So my first statement is, if a quadrilateral is a parallelogram, then it has 2 pairs of opposite sides that are parallel. So then my second statement is going to be, if it has two pairs of opposite sides that are parallel, then a quadrilateral is a parallelogram. So instead of writing it, I just read it. And then 19, make sure you can fill in a proof, like an algebraic one. So number 19. So you're looking at what happened in the previous line. So how do we go from this line to this line? This line to this line. What did we do? Well, they both have 7x plus 23, but this changed from 5 to 45 to 9. So we use the division property of equality. Or you could write multiplication. That's fine too, because you're multiplying both sides by 1/5. Okay, now this line B, you're looking at what we did from here to this line. So the 23 is gone, so we use the subtraction property of equality. And then the last line, what did we do to go from here to here? We use the division property of equality. Okay, then number 20, 21, 22. Find the values of the variables. So you have to you have to look at what type of angles they are in order to set this up. So the first two, these two are vertical angles, so I know that 3x minus 40 has to equal 2x minus 10. And it's find the values of the variables. It doesn't tell us to find the angle measures, so I'm going to subtract 2x and then add 40. So this is going to be x, this is going to be 30, so x is 30. These are vertical angles. And the second one, these angles form a linear pair. They are supplementary. They make a line, so they add up to 180. So you do 6y minus 10 plus 6y plus 10 equals 180. So these two cancel out. So now you're going to have 12y's equal 180. So y equals 18 divided by 12 is 1.5. So this is going to be 15 because of the 0. And then these two are complementary. They add up to 90. So it's going to be 4z minus 10 plus z equals 90. 5 z's, add 10 to each side, equal 100. Z equals 20. So complementary adds up to 90. Supplementary adds up to 180. And then vertical angles are congruent.